Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast Train with the Coach. This is a show where I talk everything that has to do with anything endurance sports to anyone who really wants to listen. Today, I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about the long game. But prior to doing that, over the last couple of months, we've had a couple of Ironman races out there, and I want to congratulate not just the finishers. Absolutely congratulations to the finishers, but I also want to congratulate the people who just made it to the starting line and the people who took on training and for whatever reason, couldn't make it to the starting line. Everyone deserves congratulations when they go into training for an Ironman, whether they finish the race, whether they don't finish the race. If they sign up, if they get in, to have the courage just to sign up. Look, there's hundreds of hours involved with training, months and months and months, separation from family at times on weekends when you're out doing that long stuff. The stresses of getting that time in, how I'm going to schedule my workouts. You know what? Congratulations to each and every one of you. Finisher, starter, maybe a breakdown in your training somewhere to an injury. I don't care. You all deserve to have congratulations. So let's talk about how to build endurance that lasts. That's kind of what this show is going to be about. And I want to talk about, I believe becomes more important the longer you stay in endurance sports is that it's longevity. Not just to finish your next race, not just to get through the next Ironman, not even to set a PR this season. I'm talking about something bigger, something way, way bigger. How do you become the athlete who's still training, still competing, still setting goals, and still enjoying this sport years from now? Because endurance sports have a funny way of making us impatient, right? I mean, we choose sports that require patience, and then we want results immediately. We want the faster run split. We want the bigger FTP. We want a stronger swim, that new PR. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But one of the biggest lessons I've learned as a coach is the athlete who wins in the long game isn't necessarily the athlete who trains the hardest. It's the athlete who can keep consistency. Consistency is the key to success in endurance sports. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Athletes love great workouts, right? You finish hard interval session. You look at the numbers on your watch. You think, now we're getting somewhere. Those workouts matter. Don't get me wrong. But your fitness isn't built on the heroics of a Tuesday morning afternoon workout. It's built on hundreds of relatively ordinary days stacked on top one or another. A good workout doesn't make an endurance athlete. Consistency does. Think about, let's put it this, let me make it simple. Let's think about building your brick wall. One brick doesn't make it look like much. 10 bricks doesn't make it look like much. But laying bricks every day, eventually you build something incredibly strong. Training works exactly the same way. That 45-minute easy run might not feel important. A recovery swim might not feel important. Taking a rest day certainly might not feel productive. But those are bricks. And if your training allows you to keep laying bricks week after week, month after month, year after year, you will become incredibly difficult to beat. Stop trying to win every training session. This is something I always tell my athletes. This is one of the hardest lessons for competitive athletes. You don't have to win in training. Actually, trying to win training is often the fastest way to sabotage your racing and not get to that starting line. The easy runs become moderate. The moderate ride becomes hard. The hard workout becomes a death march. And eventually the athlete reaches race day exhausted instead of prepared. I tell people all the time, better to get to a starting line undertrained than overtrained. The moderate ride becomes hard. The hard workout becomes a death march. We're back to that. And eventually, you get to the starting line tired. Sometimes the purpose is to challenge you. Sometimes the purpose is to build aerobic endurance. Sometimes the purpose is technique. Sometimes the purpose is simply recovery. A mature endurance athlete learns to respect the purpose of every session. And that purpose should be explained in your training program. Why do I have an easy run today? If I give somebody a recovery run, I say, okay, today you have a 45-minute recovery run. And the reason is, in the past 2 weeks, we did this, or on Sunday, you did this, and we need to get back from that. Look, I'm working with a guy right now who's pacing a friend of his at the Leadville 100 coming up very soon. And my athlete tweaked his knee 2 weeks ago, and we're not running at all. He's got the time and the effort in over the course of his training period to get to that race and do his job helping his friend get to the finish line. but I'm not going to break him down anymore in the process for a race that really doesn't matter to him other than helping out his friend. So, after running, I said, hey, look, let's just go for walks, ride your bike, no more running. Easy days. And of course, I'm saying a mature athlete learns to respect the purpose of the sessions. Easy days aren't failed hard days. They're part of your program. Your body adapts when training, stress, and recovery work together. Stress without recovery isn't training, it's just stress. Make sense? Makes sense to me. Train the athlete you are today is another thing I like to talk about with my athletes as they first come into my fold. One of the biggest mistakes athletes make is as they accumulate years in the sport is training the athlete they remember being. But who is the athlete you are today? Hey, look, I was a way better athlete 15 years ago than I am today. And what does it mean being way better athlete? The stresses on my body I recover from faster. I can race faster. I can, my Ironman times were faster. My marathon times were faster. Naturally, I'm older now, and that isn't the case. So maybe 10 years ago, I could hammer out 3 hard sessions a week. Maybe I could sleep 5 hours, work all day, train twice, and somehow come back the next morning ready to go again. That doesn't mean it's the right approach for me today. Training should evolve with you. Your goals should evolve with you. Your schedules changes, your responsibilities change, your recovery changes, your body changes. And good coaching recognizes that. We don't lower our expectations. We get smarter about how we reach them. That's the key. Train smarter. You hear this all the time. Train smarter, not harder. Train consistently, and you will become a better attitude. You can still become faster, right? You can still become stronger. You can still compete, but the route may look different. As you get older, as you move, even into your next race, even if you don't age between now and your next race, the route to that race may look different depending on what the goal is and what your fitness level is now. Maybe strength training becomes more important. I'm a big proponent. People say, well, we're coming in, pretty much November is the end of racing season for a month or two. And people say, well, it's a downtime. Well, it's recovery time and it's strength and conditioning time. I call the off season, not to do anything. You recover from your races, but then you go into a conditioning mode. How am I going to condition for next year? Let's sit back and talk to my coach, say, okay, what is my current fitness level? What was my fitness level going into last season? What is my fitness level coming out of last season? And what do I need to do to make it better? And that's why strength training becomes more important. Maybe recovery becomes a little bit more deliberate. Maybe we need a little more space between hard sessions. Maybe nutrition and sleep become a non-negotiable. That's not a weakness. That's wisdom. Strength is part of endurance. And if you want longevity in endurance sports, strength training deserves a permanent place in your program, especially as we get older. I know that as I've gotten over, I actually spend more time strength training than I ever did before, because I know that joints need work. I know that getting the muscles toned and ready to go and ready for the season coming up has become especially important. Endurance athletes sometimes think strength training will interfere with their running. No. Cycling, no. Swimming, no. Done intelligently, it supports all three. Strong hips, strong glutes, strong hamstrings, strong calves, strong core, strong upper body. We're not trying to turn you into bodybuilders. We're trying to create resilient athletes, because maintaining strength helps us tolerate training. And that's why it is so important to get that done. It helps you maintain good movement when you're fatigued. Now, this same gentleman who I've been training now for about 15 years, the first Boston Marathon I trained him for, he had never done a lot of core work before. And he said at mile 22, when he was really starting, in the past, he started feeling a lot more fatigue. His core was so much stronger that he could run erect and run with good form for the last 4 miles. That's the kind of thing that strength training does for you, because maintaining strength helps you tolerate training and helps you get to the starting line and the finish line a little better. It helps with movement, and it gives you another tool for staying capable as the years add up. Think of strength training as an investment in the athlete you want to be 5, 10, or 20 years from now. Don't think about that you want to be tomorrow. Think about, again, longevity. Recovery is training. I tell people this all the time. Here's another mindset shift. Recovery isn't something you do because you're too tired to train. Recovery is part of training. Sleep matters, nutrition matters, hydration matters, mobility matters, stress management matters, easy days matter, rest days matter. You can't consistently withdraw money from the bank without making deposits. Your body is no different. If you're constantly asking it to perform, but never giving it the resources to rebuild, eventually something gives. Sometimes that's performance, sometimes that's motivation, and sadly, sometimes that's injury. The goal isn't to see how much punishment your body can survive. The goal is to discover how much fitness your body can absorb. They're two very, very, very different things. Don't let your watch become your coach. I'm a big heart rate power trainer. I mean, all my athletes I train under heart rate, power, and power, just like everyone else is doing. And the technology is incredible today. 20 years ago, we had polar heart rate monitors, and that's basically what happened. You could monitor your heart rate, but then we learned Garmin and other groups came along and started to develop more technology and better technology, measuring power, measuring stress. We can measure all the data in the world, and we should use that data. I believe in the data. Heart rate, power, pace, cadence, recovery metrics. They can all help us understand training, but numbers need context. That's the important thing. Your watch doesn't know you had a terrible night's sleep. It doesn't know you had a stressful day at work. It doesn't know your legs feel amazing, even though some algorithm says your training readiness is low. You need to know, and you need to be meticulous about logging and about not just the numbers, but how you feel. I tell my athletes all the time, when I read a log, I want to say, how did I feel today? Was this a great training session that I'm used to? Was this a mediocre training session? Did I accomplish the purpose of the training session? These are things that you should be recording yourself that your watch can't tell you. Did you tweak that knee? Did my ankle hurt a little bit? Oh, I stepped off a curb funny today and my ankle's a little sore. Those are all things that you need to look at yourself, because the watch, it doesn't know your legs are feeling amazing. It doesn't know your legs are feeling bad. And it definitely doesn't understand your motivation, confidence, or lifestyle. Another thing that's very, very important to me with my athletes is understanding their lifestyle. What does their job entail? What is their family life? What is their free time? When do they have, when are the best hours for them to train? All of this is encapsulated into help creating consistency, reducing stress, and making the training a lot better so you get to that starting line. Use your technology, but don't surrender your judgment to it, please. Learn your body. Learn what tired feels like. Learn what injured feels like. I hate using that word even. Learn what normal training fatigue feels like. Learn when you can push and when you need to back off. I mean, that's one of the biggest lessons. When can I push through an interval workout? When do I need to back off from an interval workout? These things are important things that only you understand. The watch doesn't, the family doesn't, unless you're chatting with them about it. But sometimes chatting with your family about what's going on with you physically and mentally is a way to cross that hurdle. Learn when you can push, learn when you need to back off. Very, very important. The skill becomes incredibly valuable over a lifetime of an endurance sports. Keep something on the calendar. This is something I notice about athletes who stay active for decades. They continue to have goals. This gentleman, I'll go back to talking about this gentleman again. I think he has run 60, maybe close to 70 marathons. He's done Boston, who knows how many countless of times, but he still has goals. He's now 62 years old, and he has a goal to qualify for Boston again next year. And, that's a great goal. He can do that. The work we've done, we have an incredible base built because he's done a couple of endurance things. He paced a guy out at Western States, and he did a 50K himself this year. He has a huge base that we can build on going into his goal race to try to get to Boston. And it doesn't always have to be, you don't always have to do a marathon or an Ironman. You can do a local 5K just to keep the competitiveness, in the head active, to keep the motivation there. Signing up for races is a great key to motivation. Okay, I just spent $1,000 signing. Personally, I just spent $1,000 signing up for an Ironman next year. Then I'm going to have travel expenses. I have a coach because I believe everyone should have a coach. I have coaching expenses, room and board for the race. I mean, it's a monumental fee to do an Ironman anymore, and even marathons. I mean, again a big fee. I remember when marathons used to be $60, and now they're $300. And again with the travel, so try to do things in between that maybe aren't as costly, but keep you motivated. Do a 5K, do a sprint. I have a gentleman who just finished Ohio 70.3, fourth in his age group. And he's done with those longer races for the year. He's got a couple sprints coming up because they keep him motivated and they keep him going and they keep him on the training circuit. So that's important. A century ride, a trail race. I like to do trail races when I don't have anything big on the agenda because trail races are fun. And you know what? Running on trails is great for your running form. It also helps to strengthen parts of your body that you don't even think about. Trail running can, because of the different movement of the feet on the ground and the imbalances on the trail, it actually strengthens the lower part of your body, believe that or not. Swim challenges, go do some kind of swim challenge. There's a lot of great ones. Go do a swim camp. Go somewhere to improve your swim form. Because I'm telling you, if any of our sports that require great technique, what are the two most? Swimming and running, right? Bad form leads to bad times, leads to injuries. Technique are some of the important things that I'm always stressing to my athletes. I have them make swim videos. I'm a certified total immersion guy from before, and now I have my own version that I teach. But I teach my swimmers technique. Last year at Lake Placid, I had a young guy who came to me, wanted to do the race. He couldn't swim 100 yards across the pool. And we finished Lake Placid. He finished the swim in Lake Placid in an hour and 14 minutes. Because all we did was work on technique, got him smoother, got him longer, and he had a great swim. Simply try and run here's one. Just simply try to run your fastest mile in 5 years. I don't know if I can do that anymore. I don't know what my fastest mile is over the last 5 years. Maybe I should go out and pay attention to my own advice and go out and run a couple of fast miles and see what I still have in me. That might be kind of interesting. Goals give training direction is my point. If you don't have any goals, you don't have any direction. When someone comes to me and they say, I want to do an Ironman, I say, what's your goal? And they say, to finish. I say, that's not a goal. There's got to be something better. You just don't want, finishing is great. And if you do finish, make that. Let's have an A goal. Let's say your A goal is 15 hours or 14 hours. And then let's have a B goal. Let's say I want to get across that finish line in 16 hours. Then that C goal can be, I want to finish. And the same thing with a marathon. This is my marathon goal. I want to run my marathon in this time, right? Is my A goal. My B goal is this. My C goal is to finish. But goals give you training direction and they give you motivation. They give you that reason to get out the door when motivation isn't there. But there's an important distinction. Your goals should inspire you. They shouldn't imprison you. And again, that takes us back to how is my body feeling? How am I responding to training? Where am I going next? When my goals inspire me to move forward, that's great. But if my goals are wearing me down and dragging me out, then you're imprisoned by them and you shouldn't be that way. You're more than a race result, which is why I said at the beginning of this show, congratulations for everyone who signed up for an Ironman or a marathon or a 100-miler and trained. And even if you didn't make it to the race, you're more than a race result. You tried, you got there, and guess what? Now it's time. If you didn't get there, now it's time to look back and say, hey, what part of this training that coach is talking about didn't I do properly? That I didn't get to the starting. What part of my body didn't I listen to? Where did I push when I shouldn't have pushed? And if I didn't achieve my A goal, why didn't I achieve my A goal? Go back and take a look at your run, your swim, your bike, and look at the times were, and look what your goals were in those times, and try to figure out why you missed those. And what happened when I got to the starting line. Hey, maybe I was just, I was overtrained and I got to the starting line and I didn't hit the goals that I wanted to hit. So again, you're more than a result. But look at the reasons why you didn't get there. One bad race doesn't erase 6 months of training. I mean, it's crazy to think that. One missed workout doesn't ruin your season. And one slow season doesn't mean your best athletic days are behind you. Keep dreaming, keep setting goals, keep moving forward. This hat I'm wearing right now is not dead yet. It's kind of a military thing about moving forward through life. and adversity. But it's also a great reminder to move forward with life and with your goals and what you want to do. Never settle. Set goals, set new goals, set bigger goals. Try to achieve them. Make them realistic goals. If you're 70 years old, you're not going to do a 9-hour Ironman anymore. You're not going to run a 3-hour and 5-minute marathon. Maybe some can, but I don't think many will. So be realistic there, and you have that bad race, you miss a workout, you don't ruin your season, and if you have a bad season, again, go back and look at why. No one knows better the whys than you as the athlete. As a coach, we can tell you anything, we can look at the workouts and at this, but the whys come from you. Why did I do this? Why didn't I do that? And then discuss that with your coach and say, why are we doing this, and what are we going to do to get better for next season? Just make sure you're enjoying some of the journey while you're chasing the destination, right? There should be fun along the way. There should be, prep races that you go into and you have a good time, and maybe they're showing you a little bit of where you're at, or maybe you're just doing it. Maybe take your kids out, do a 5K with your kids. Go to a kids triathlon and have some fun there. Have some fun along the way so it doesn't mentally bog you down so much. You don't need to be who you were. That may be especially important for long-time athletes. Stop constantly comparing today's version of yourself with the athlete you were 20 years ago. It was a hard thing for me to get over. But finally I said, okay, look, I'm 70. I'm not 40 anymore. I'm not 35 anymore. And so my goals this year going into my Ironman are way, way different than they used to be. I'm going into in November, I'm going into New York. My goals way, way different. Now, trust me, I'm not saying I just want to finish. I know I'm going to finish. I have an A goal, I have a B goal, and I have get to the finish line goal. And again, I think that's very, very important. Maybe your old 10K times, 5K times, marathon times were faster. Maybe you recovered quicker. Maybe you could train differently. That's okay, because you're not competing against a younger version of yourself. You're building the strongest version of who you are today. And that doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or 70. You're building a stronger version of yourself today. That should be your goal. It's an enormous satisfaction in discovering what you're capable of at 40, at 50, at 60, and even at 70 and beyond. Your athletic identity doesn't have an expiration date. Maybe the PRs change. Maybe instead of a lifetime PR, you're chasing the best performance you've had in 5 years. There's a lot of different things that you can do to keep you motivated and keep it realistic. Maybe your victory isn't finishing an event you weren't sure you could finish. Maybe simply crossing another starting line healthy. All those achievements count. Best athletes adapt. That's the thing about being adaptable. Training rarely goes exactly according to plan. Let's face it. I'm sure any of you who have done a marathon, a 100-miler, or an Ironman, there have been life-happening things that change it. Weather happens, injuries happen, work happens, family happens. These are all things that can affect your training. And successful athletes learn to adjust to those things. Missing one workout isn't a crisis. Sometimes we move it. I have one gal I train who's towards the end of her training now for Chattanooga, Ironman Chattanooga, and she makes adjustments all the time because she has a training group that goes with it. Sometimes I'll have a big Saturday brick on it for her and a long run on Sunday, and she flip-flops them because her training group is doing something else and she wants to go train with her friends. It hasn't hurt her performance, and it won't hurt her performance. And she's been doing this a very long time. I think I've been training her 10 or 12 years now, maybe longer. So you have to learn how to make those adjustments. And sometimes you move it, sometimes you modify it, sometimes you skip it. It's okay. It's okay. As long as you have the right mindset and you know the reasons why you're doing it and you move it and you're ready to move forward. One of the worst things you can do is turn one missed workout into 3 bad workouts, but trying to desperately make everything up. I tell my athletes, and I will they say, well, I missed my Sunday run. I'm going to do it on Monday. No, you're not. You missed your Sunday run. We move into the next week. That's fine. But you're not going to make up that long run on a Monday and throw off the whole rest of that week of the training plan. You miss a workout, move forward to the next one. That's what you should do. Don't let it get in your head because you missed up that workout. Look, training plans are maps. They're not commandments. So they're a guide to get you through the training so you get to the next race. That's what training plans are. Not commandments to say, oh, you have to do these. I'm sorry, I just looked up. There's a great big flash of lightning. The destination matters more than following every single line perfectly. As long as you get to your destination and you can go after your goals, then you're going to be fine. Your why will change. Why did I start? Maybe you wanted to lose weight. Maybe someone talked you into your first race. Maybe you wanted to prove something. Maybe you're simply curious. I don't know. But if you stay in endurance sports long enough, your reasons will probably change. At some point, training becomes more than race preparation. It becomes part of your life. When you have 16, 18, 20-hour weeks in Ironman training, or if you're running, 4 times a week getting ready for that marathon, that all becomes part of your life. And you have to fit that part of your life into your schedule in a comfortable way, where it's not adding stress, but it's helping you to become a better athlete. You begin to appreciate the early morning runs, the quiet miles on the bike. I used to train with people all the time, and now I don't like to, because I know what happens is everyone starts asking me coaching questions when I'm training. And I like to get away from that. I like to make my training miles, my time out there. I go on my run, it's about me. When I go on my bike ride, it's about me. When I go to the pool, it's about me. And I think that's important. Those miles like that by yourself, getting your head out of the game, and just accomplishing whatever that workout goal and purpose is for the day, that's very, very important. I love the rhythm of swimming laps. I get into the pool, and I get in a method, and I'm getting the swim done, and my head really just gets out of the world, and I'm good to go. Doesn't mean you can't have the friendships, the races, the travel. I sit around with my fellow athletes and friends, and we chat all the time. I get out of the pool. There's generally a couple of guys or gals there who are also triathletes or endurance athletes, and we sit around and we chat. But that doesn't mean you have to get into every workout with them, at least for me anyway. But whatever makes you enjoy your workout the most is, if you like training with a group, if running with the group motivates you more, then by all means, that's the way you should train. But it's always about what's in your head that matters. So we talk about the long game. We're back to the beginning of this. Here's what I want you to remember. You don't need to destroy yourself today to become better tomorrow. You don't need to chase someone else's training volume. You don't need to prove your toughness every morning. You need to build. Train hard when it's time to train hard. Go easy when it's time to go easy. Lift weights, eat enough, sleep, recover. Listen to your body. Set goals that excite you. And then keep showing up. That's the important thing. Keep showing up, because endurance sports rewards patience. Fitness compounds. Experience compounds. Confidence compounds. Thousands of small decisions eventually become something very, very powerful. Maybe you're listening to this while you're preparing for your first endurance event. That would be great. Maybe you've been racing for 30 years and you're listening to this, and hopefully you get something out of it. Either way, I want you to think beyond the race that's currently circled in your calendar. Ask yourself, what kind of athlete do I want to be 5 years from now? And then what do I need to do to give that athlete a chance to exist? Sometimes the answer is a hard workout. Sometimes it's an easy run. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is just take the day off. The goal isn't simply to finish another race. The goal is to build a body, mindset, lifestyle that allow you to keep doing what you love for a very long time. Train for the next race, but build for the next decade. And as always, until I see you next time, be healthy, train smart, have fun, and I'll see you around.